Remember, we do multiple time frame analysis, which means that what we're looking for is the dominant cycle and the dominant momentum, and then the shorter term cycle and momentum. We put that analysis together. And if you're a much shorter term trader, like a day trader or a swing trader for a couple days, you might also be putting in the 2 hour charts on that. So not putting that up right now, but here, what I want you to see looking at the weekly chart is that, let me just go a little bit further out in here. You could see the beautiful cyclical harmonics that are in here. Remember, what we're looking at are the rhythms in the market. The bigger cycle brackets on the bottom are the most dominant. And then you have, in this case, a minor third that's in there. And that minor third tracks the silver pretty well because you have silver in there also. And what this all was calling for was a corrective period in here. Now, note that what you have in here is still upside momentum. What that would say is that corrections will be only into these upper levels of support, which says to me that you come down here to 3150, potentially here to about 3035. Those are the downside targets that we have in here during this corrective period. And the correction is coming very timely. Now, if I go over to the daily chart, look at the yellow zones. Those are the areas where you start to look for corrective parts of the cycles. If you take our cycle analysis workshop, you'll learn about the four different phases that we look at: the rising phase, the cresting or peaking phase, the declining phase, and the bottoming phase. And here you could see it crested right in here, and we entered into the corrective phase to see where this rolled over. So what you have here is a momentum that is negative on the daily chart against momentum positive on the weekly chart. And that tells you that you're probably not going to get a giant move to the downside. It's probably move down into supports. So what we have here is the 78.6%. That's this distance right in here, as if it gave up 78.6. It's gotten here under this minor cycle right there. Once it got under there, it convinced us that what we're in is this corrective period here, and that yellow zone, that yellow area saying this is that period of risk. And we have it labeled in here. If you're learning about cycle analysis, well, you see right over here where it just had a little correction. That's a strong right-hand translation there. You could see right over here a strong right-hand translation there. But what happened here is that the peak was on the left side of the cycle, and this is a weaker left-hand translation, confirmed by that break right there, and now moving into this corrective area. So here's your minor 100% fib extension right there. Here's the 138 right there, and here's the 161.8 here. These prices right over here are 3149, 3085. This is 3035. So you can see that 3035 number is coming up again right over there. And this down over here is under 3,029.70, which is this cycle low right there. So if the sell-off became extreme, that's where it would probably go down to. Once this is completed right in here, the question is, will this be completed here on the weekly? And let's go to the next cycle right over here. So this one right over here tells us, well, that ends on 7/8. So that's July 8th. Right now, you can see this is pointing out to the end of June. So there's a possibility in here that this goes out to, let me just move this here, right around that July 8th period, or that the cycle that it's in is actually going to make the low. So I'm just going to activate this, which would give you the low somewhere right around here. So either the cycle we're in is going to make that trough, or the one out here to July 8th, because I'm using the daily to give me this short-term information. Will this come down, have another rally, and then come down again into early July? That is a possibility. We don't know that yet. We're going to learn that from how these patterns act, how the momentum acts, how the cycle formations come. We learn all of that from this information. So that's what I'm giving you right now. The next week looks like it's going to move down, and then there would be some kind of a bounce in here. Depending on where the bounce goes, we'll get a sense for this next cycle out over here. So this low over here points to the end of May, the beginning of June. That would be this right over here. Let me just move this over one click, like right over there, or the next cycle out over here to the beginning of July. That's kind of a bigger look at how I'm doing this analysis, but I think it's very informative to look at it that way.